Hi everyone, welcome to our channel where we share meaningful and inspiring stories every day. Today, I want to take you on a journey, a story about kindness, transformation, and how small acts can create a big impact in someone's life. If you love heartfelt stories, life-changing lessons, and want to spread positivity to the world, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Your support means everything to us and helps us keep bringing more amazing stories to life. Now, let's dive into the incredible journey of two people from very different worlds who came together to create a story you won't want to miss. Have you ever wondered how a single moment can change the course of not one, but two lives forever? How a small act of kindness, given without expectation, can ripple outward, touching hearts and creating transformations in ways no one could have predicted? Tonight, I want to share with you a story of two lives. One of a wealthy, successful man who had lost touch with the values that once shaped him, and the other of a young boy, struggling yet unbroken, whose heart was as warm as the winter night was cold. This is a story of a chance encounter on a snowy evening in a European city, where the glittering lights of wealth stood starkly against the quiet resolve of humble humanity. It's a story of selflessness, redemption, and the enduring power of kindness. As we journey through this tale, let it serve as a gentle reminder that no act of compassion, no matter how small, ever goes unnoticed. Because sometimes, it is the smallest gestures that create the largest ripples. So, settle in and let me take you to a night blanketed in snow, where an old car and a determined boy changed everything. On a wintry evening, the city lay under a thick, shimmering blanket of snow, its usual vibrancy stilled by the biting cold. The streets, often filled with the chatter of hurried footsteps and the hum of life, were now eerily quiet, the sound of the falling snow muffling even the distant rumble of traffic. The air was crisp, cutting through layers of clothing with an icy sharpness that stung the skin and flushed cheeks red. Streetlights cast their soft, golden glow over the scene, their beams refracted into halos by the swirling snowflakes. The few passers-by who braved the cold moved quickly, their figures huddled and wrapped in scarves, heads bent low against the wind. On the side of a deserted road, a sleek luxury car stood still, its once powerful engine silenced by an unexpected failure. The vehicle, a polished emblem of wealth and sophistication, now seemed almost vulnerable, its dark frame outlined against the unblemished white of the snow-covered streets. Beside it stood a man, tall and commanding in his tailored coat and fine leather gloves, yet visibly frustrated. The weight of his helplessness hung heavy in the frosty air. His breath, visible in the cold, formed small clouds that dissipated quickly as he paced back and forth, his polished shoes crunching on the frozen ground. Despite his affluent appearance, his broad shoulders carried an unfamiliar tension. Tonight, he was just another stranded soul laid bare by circumstances beyond his control. In the distance, faint and rhythmic, came the sound of an old bicycle chain clinking softly. It was a humble sound, starkly contrasting the opulence of the immobilized car. Emerging from the swirling haze of white, a boy appeared, his small figure barely distinguishable in the dim light. The soft crunch of his bicycle tires cutting through the snow announced his approach as he pedaled toward the scene. The boy was slight, almost fragile, with slender shoulders and a wiry frame that spoke of a life lived without excess. His jacket, thin and patched in places, clung to his body like a second skin, doing little to guard him from the freezing air. His shoes, scuffed and worn, left faint imprints in the snow, prints that told a story of countless steps taken on difficult roads. Yet it was his face that drew the most attention. His Asian features were sharp and youthful, and his skin was kissed by the faint blush of the cold. But it was his eyes, bright and unyielding, that seemed to carry the weight of his soul. They were the eyes of someone who had seen hardship, yet refused to be beaten by it. Eyes that still held the fire of hope, even on the coldest of nights. "Sir, do you need help?" he called out, his voice steady and clear despite the wind that seemed determined to swallow all sound. The question cut through the silence, startling the man from his frustration. The man turned toward the boy, his furrowed brow softening momentarily in surprise. He took in the sight of the young stranger standing before him, a stark contrast to his own polished image, and hesitated. "I appreciate it," he said, his tone guarded. "But I'm not sure you could do much in this situation." He gestured to the lifeless car, his breath curling into the air like smoke. William's lips curled into a small, unassuming smile. "My father's a mechanic," he said simply, his words carrying an unshakable confidence. "I've picked up a thing or two from him. Let me take a look." There was a pause, a moment of indecision in the man's eyes as he assessed the boy standing before him, shivering slightly in the cold, yet resolute. Before he could respond, William had already propped his bicycle against a nearby lamppost and approached the car. The boy's movements were swift and assured as he opened the hood, his slender fingers inspecting the engine with a practiced touch. Snowflakes gathered in his hair and on his jacket, melting into small droplets that trickled down his face. His breath came out in short, visible puffs as he worked, the cold biting at his exposed skin. The man stood back, watching silently, a strange mix of doubt and curiosity playing across his features. The boy's quiet determination stirred something within him, an echo of a time when he too had been young and hopeful, before the weight of ambition and responsibility had hardened him. Minutes passed, and then, with a sputter and a roar, the engine came to life. The sound broke through the stillness like a sudden surge of hope. William stepped back, wiping his hands on his jacket with a satisfied nod. His face, though flushed from the cold, carried a quiet pride that made him seem older than his years. Relief washed over the man's face as he turned to the boy. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice warmer now, the initial skepticism replaced by genuine gratitude. "William," the boy replied simply, his tone as unassuming as his actions. The man nodded slowly, his gaze softening. "You've helped me immensely tonight. Let me pay you for your troubles." William's response was immediate, firm yet kind. He shook his head, his eyes meeting the man's with an honesty that was both disarming and humbling. "I didn't do it for money, sir," he said. "Helping others feels good enough for me." For a moment, the man was silent, his thoughts turning inward. He looked at William, his tattered jacket, his worn shoes, his bright, unwavering eyes, and felt an unexpected pang of emotion. Decades of wealth and success had dulled his sensitivity to such earnestness. He had spent years building an empire, brick by brick, yet the purity of this boy's actions brought a warmth he hadn't felt in years. William's unwavering integrity reminded him of the boy he had once been, before ambition overshadowed kindness, before survival gave way to greed. As William climbed back onto his bicycle, his silhouette disappearing into the swirling snow, the man remained standing by his car, watching until the boy was no longer visible. The cold seemed less biting now, though the wind still howled through the streets. For the first time in years, he felt a small, flickering warmth in his chest, a feeling that had nothing to do with the luxury he surrounded himself with and everything to do with the boy's simple, selfless act. He climbed into his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel, and sat in silence for a long moment. The world outside was still blanketed in white, the snow continuing its relentless fall. Yet, within him, something had shifted. As the engine hummed steadily, he thought not of the inconvenience of the evening, but of the gift the boy had unknowingly given him, a reminder that even in the coldest of nights, the warmth of kindness could reignite a dormant heart. Samuel Ashcroft was not always a man of affluence. His story began in a cramped, aging tenement on the outskirts of Berlin, where the air was often thick with the acrid scent of smoke from nearby factories. The narrow cobblestone streets of his childhood bore the marks of wear, just like the lives of the families who lived there. Families like his, caught in a ceaseless battle against poverty. The faint sound of machinery from the industrial district echoed day and night, blending with the cries of street vendors and the occasional laughter of children too young to understand the weight of their circumstances. Samuel's father, a stoic and weary man, toiled endlessly in a factory where the hours were long and the wages barely enough to scrape by. His hands, calloused and perpetually stained with grease, were a testament to years of unyielding labor. Samuel often watched him return home in the dim glow of the evening, his shoulders slumped and his boots coated in soot. His mother, equally resilient, spent her days hunched over a sewing machine, her fingers flying over threadbare fabrics as she tried to piece together garments for meager pay. The light from the single kerosene lamp on their kitchen table illuminated her face, etched with lines of quiet determination. For young Samuel, every day was a test of endurance. The mornings were bitterly cold, the frost painting intricate patterns on their window panes. He would wake early, wrapping himself in layers of patched clothing, and set out to scavenge for scrap metal in the alleys and junkyards scattered across the city. His small hands, often red and raw from the chill, sifted through piles of discarded machinery and broken appliances. Each piece he salvaged brought a few coins closer to the bread and soup that kept his family from going hungry. Despite the unrelenting hardships, Samuel harbored a restless curiosity. He was fascinated by the gears and cogs he found among the scraps, often tinkering with them in the corner of their tiny apartment. His mother, though exhausted, would smile faintly at his determination, her heart aching with hope that her son's ingenuity might one day lead him to a better life. But poverty has a way of overshadowing dreams. The hunger gnawed at him incessantly, a dull ache that became a constant companion. The winters were especially cruel. The icy winds would seep through the cracks in their walls, and their meager fire would struggle to keep the biting cold at bay. Samuel's feet, clad in shoes so worn they barely held together, often went numb as he walked the frozen streets. At night, he would lie awake on his makeshift bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of his family's struggles pressing down on him like the heavy blankets they lacked. Life, however, has a way of changing in unexpected ways. Samuel's turning point came when he was just 18. It was during one of his many days rummaging through discarded machinery that he stumbled upon the idea for an engine part. A simple yet ingenious modification that could make engines run more efficiently. The idea consumed him, lighting a fire in his mind that burned brighter than the stove in their dim kitchen. For weeks he worked tirelessly, using every spare moment to refine his design, sketching diagrams on scraps of paper salvaged from the streets. When he finally sold his patent to a burgeoning automobile company, the transformation in his life was swift and dramatic. The boy who had once trudged barefoot through cobbled streets now found himself thrust into a world of wealth and opportunity. The rags of his youth were replaced with tailored suits. The hollow ache of hunger gave way to lavish meals served in grand dining halls. Samuel, Ashcroft had arrived in a realm of affluence, far removed from the grim realities of his upbringing. Yet, as the years passed and the trappings of success grew around him, Samuel began to bury the memories of his past. The soot-covered boy who had once stared wide-eyed at machinery in a dingy workshop was now hidden beneath layers of luxury and status. He avoided the cobblestone streets of his childhood, the faint echoes of factory whistles, and the smoky tenements that had once defined his world. In his relentless pursuit of wealth and success, he left behind the very struggles that had shaped him, allowing the boy he once was to fade into the shadows of his gilded life. That night, as Samuel Ashcroft stood by his car, watching William's slight figure fade into the swirling snow, a peculiar heaviness settled over him. The boy's selflessness and quiet determination lingered in Samuel's thoughts like a melody he could not shake. The memory of William's unwavering refusal to accept any reward for his help, despite the evident poverty he lived in, stirred something long buried within Samuel. For the first time in years, he found himself thinking about his own youth, a time he had spent so much of his adult life trying to forget. The city around him was silent, save for the soft hiss of snowflakes landing on the cold ground. The street lights flickered faintly, casting long, wavering shadows onto the empty sidewalks. The world seemed wrapped in a muffled stillness, as if it were holding its breath. Samuel stood motionless, his gloved hands resting in his coat pockets, the warmth of his wealth doing little to thaw the icy stirrings in his chest. The boy's bright eyes, filled with a quiet strength, stayed with him as he drove home through the deserted streets. The plush interior of his car, with its heated leather seats and state-of-the-art technology, felt strangely hollow tonight. When he reached his grand townhouse, Samuel didn't immediately go inside. He sat in the car for a long time, staring at the elaborate iron gates that guarded his home. The glow from the windows hinted at the luxury within. Crystal chandeliers, antique furnishings, and art pieces worth more than some people's homes. Yet, none of it brought him the peace he had expected from success. Tonight, his opulent surroundings felt suffocating. The image of William, thin, underdressed, and yet full of hope, refused to leave him. That boy had something Samuel had lost long ago, the strength to give without expecting anything in return. Sleep eluded him that night. As he lay in his oversized bed, his thoughts drifted back to the boy. He thought about William's tattered shoes, his threadbare jacket, and the way his breath had fogged the icy air as he worked to revive Samuel's car. Most of all, he thought about William's refusal to accept money, his insistence that helping others was reward enough. The memory gnawed at him, chipping away at the polished veneer of his life, exposing cracks he had ignored for years. Samuel could feel the boy's presence in the quiet of his home, an echo of something he had once known but could no longer grasp. By the time dawn broke, Samuel had made up his mind. The decision wasn't born of guilt or obligation, but of something deeper, a longing to reconnect with a part of himself that had been lost amid the pursuit of wealth and status. He resolved to help William and his family, not out of pity, but out of admiration for their resilience and strength. That morning, after a cup of coffee he barely tasted, Samuel began his quiet mission. He discreetly tracked down William's address, a task made simple by the license plate on the boy's bicycle. The neighborhood, situated on the outskirts of the city, was a stark contrast to the lavish streets Samuel was accustomed to. The houses were small and tightly packed, their facades worn and weathered by time. The streets were lined with uneven cobblestones, and the air carried a faint scent of smoke from chimneys struggling to fend off the winter cold. Samuel parked his car at a distance, not wanting to draw attention. As he approached the modest house, his polished shoes crunching against the icy ground, he felt a pang of something he hadn't felt in years: nervousness. The house was a simple structure with peeling paint and a sagging roof, but it exuded a warmth that Samuel couldn't quite explain. Through the frosted window, he caught a glimpse of the family inside. They were gathered around a small wooden table, the light from a single bulb casting soft shadows on their faces. William sat beside his mother, his hands busy mending an old coat while she worked on stitching a patch onto a blanket. Laughter filled the room, a gentle sound that seemed to push back against the weight of their struggles. Samuel watched as William's younger sleeve, her face alight with joy as he teased her playfully. The scene was intimate and unguarded, a stark reminder of the bonds that no amount of wealth could buy. Samuel stood there for a long time, his breath fogging the window as he observed the family. He felt an ache in his chest, a strange combination of admiration and regret. He could see that, despite their hardships, they had something he lacked: a sense of unity, a shared strength that came from facing challenges together. It was a stark contrast to his own life, filled with solitude despite the abundance of material comforts. Determined to help without disrupting the purity of their lives, Samuel began his efforts in secret. Through a charitable organization he trusted, he ensured that William's family received discreet financial assistance. Repairs were made to their home under the guise of a community improvement initiative, and food deliveries began arriving weekly, attributed to a local aid program. Samuel also set up a scholarship fund in William's name, ensuring the boy could pursue his dreams without the burden of financial strain. For William's mother, he arranged stable employment at a textile company he owned, providing her with both security and dignity. Samuel was careful to keep his involvement hidden. He didn't want William to feel indebted or to lose the purity of his selfless spirit. Each act of kindness was a quiet tribute to the boy who had reminded him of the values he had long forsaken. As the days turned into weeks, Samuel found himself driving past the family's house occasionally, unable to resist the pull of their humble warmth. He would catch glimpses of them through the window, their lives slowly transforming, yet their bond remaining as strong as ever. For Samuel, this quiet endeavor became more than an act of charity. It was a form of redemption, a way to reconnect with the boy he had once been, the boy who had known the weight of poverty and the strength it took to rise above it. Through William, Samuel rediscovered a sense of purpose, a reminder that true wealth lay not in material possessions, but in the ability to lift others. One evening, as he watched William walking home from school, his arms filled with books from the scholarship he unknowingly owed to Samuel, the older man felt an unfamiliar lightness in his heart. For the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. The boy's resilience and selflessness had not only transformed his family's life, but had also reignited a part of Samuel's soul that he thought he had lost forever. Years flowed like a river, carrying William from the cobbled streets of his modest beginnings to a life shaped by his boundless curiosity and determination. The boy who once worked tirelessly in the chill of a snowy evening had grown into a man of immense capability. His path was neither smooth nor easy, yet every challenge seemed to hone his resolve. William became a brilliant engineer, his mind brimming with ideas and innovations that sparked admiration from peers and mentors alike. His work was not just technical. It carried a quiet brilliance, reflecting the same earnestness that had defined him in his youth. One morning, as sunlight poured through the windows of his small, tidy apartment, William opened a letter that bore the insignia of Ashcroft Motors, a name synonymous with excellence in engineering and innovation. His heart quickened as he read the elegant script inviting him to interview for a coveted position. It was an opportunity that could shape the next chapter of his life, a chance to step into the forefront of an industry he had long admired. The day of the interview arrived, and William found himself standing before the towering glass facade of Ashcroft Motors headquarters. The building was a marvel of modern design, its sleek lines and shimmering windows reflecting the bustling city around it. Yet, for all its grandeur, William felt a peculiar sense of calm. He was no longer the uncertain boy who had once stood in the cold, looking for ways to help others without expecting anything in return. He was a man who had learned to trust in his abilities and the values that had brought him this far. The lobby was a symphony of polished marble and subdued lighting, with employees moving purposefully through the space. William's footsteps echoed as he made his way to the receptionist, who directed him to the top floor. The elevator ascended smoothly, its glass walls offering a breathtaking view of the city. As he reached the highest level, the doors opened to reveal an office that seemed to float above the urban sprawl. The space was opulent but tasteful, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the skyline and a warm, inviting decor that balanced modernity with timeless elegance. At the far end of the room, a man rose from behind a grand mahogany desk. Samuel Ashcroft was older now, his hair streaked with silver, but his presence was as commanding as ever. His tailored suit and poised demeanor spoke of a life well lived, yet there was a softness in his expression that seemed to transcend his stature. As William stepped into the room, a strange familiarity washed over him, though he couldn't immediately place it. "William," Samuel said, his voice warm yet tinged with emotion. The name rolled off his tongue as though it carried the weight of years. "You may not remember me, but I've never forgotten you." The words hung in the air, their significance unraveling slowly in William's mind. His brow furrowed as he studied the older man's face, searching for a connection. And then, like a sudden burst of light, recognition dawned. Memories of a snowy evening flooded back. The luxury car stranded by the roadside, the man's initial skepticism, and the gratitude that had followed. William's breath caught as he realized the wealthy businessman standing before him was the very man whose car he had fixed all those years ago. Tears welled up in William's eyes as he took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's you," he said, the words heavy with disbelief and wonder. Samuel smiled, a mix of pride and humility softening his features. "Yes, it's me," he replied, "and I owe so much to you, William. That night, your kindness reignited something in me I thought I had lost. It reminded me of the values I had once cherished, but had forgotten in my pursuit of success." As Samuel spoke, the room seemed to fade away, leaving only the shared understanding between the two men. For William, the moment was overwhelming, not because of Samuel's wealth or the grandeur of his office, but because of the genuine gratitude in his words. It was a profound validation of the principles William had lived by: kindness, integrity, and a willingness to help others without expecting anything in return. The conversation deepened, weaving through memories and reflections. Samuel recounted how that single act of kindness had sparked a transformation in his life, leading him to reconnect with his past and rediscover the joy of giving. He spoke of the quiet support he had provided for William's family over the years, ensuring they had the opportunities they deserved while preserving their dignity. William listened, his heart swelling with gratitude and admiration for the man who had chosen to repay kindness with even greater generosity. The sun dipped lower in the sky as their exchange continued, casting a golden light across the room. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but within the office, time seemed to stand still. For Samuel, meeting William again was a moment of closure, a fulfillment of a promise he had made to himself years ago. For William, It was a revelation that his small gesture on that snowy night had not only changed another's life, but had come full circle to impact his own in ways he could never have imagined. By the end of the meeting, Samuel extended more than just a job offer. He invited William to join him in a vision for the future, a partnership rooted in their shared values. Together, they would innovate not only in technology, but in the way business could uplift communities and inspire hope. As William left the building that evening, the city lights reflecting off the glass towers around him, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey from the cold streets of his childhood to the heights of Ashcroft Motors had been long and challenging, but it had been guided by the simple truths he had always held dear. And now, standing on the cusp of a new chapter, he knew that the story he and Samuel were about to write together would be one of compassion, innovation, and enduring impact. Together, the two men embarked on a journey that transcended their individual lives, driven by a shared vision of making the world a better place. It was a path neither had anticipated, but one they embraced wholeheartedly, weaving together the threads of their pasts and their shared belief in the transformative power of kindness. What began as modest steps quickly grew into a movement, their mission fueled by a determination that neither wealth nor youth alone could accomplish. Samuel Ashcroft, once a figurehead of material success, now stood reborn, his wealth no longer a shield but a tool for creating change. Beside him, William, youthful and full of boundless optimism, served as a constant reminder of the purest motivations for their efforts. The world they sought to transform was one of stark contrasts. In the cities where their initiatives began, shimmering skyscrapers towered over neighborhoods marked by neglect and struggle. Samuel often found himself reflecting on these contradictions during their visits, his heart heavy with both sadness and hope. The narrow, uneven streets of underserved areas teemed with an indomitable life. Laughter rang out from children playing in makeshift playgrounds cobbled together from discarded materials. Women haggled in open-air markets, their voices rising and falling like a chorus of survival, while men toiled in small workshops, their hands crafting what little they could to provide for their families. Samuel walked these streets beside William, his polished shoes a jarring contrast to the worn sandals and boots around him. His thoughts often drifted to his own beginnings, to the alleys of Berlin, where he had scavenged for scraps as a boy. The echoes of his youth felt closer here, in the lively chaos of these neighborhoods. With each interaction, he found himself reconnected to the boy he once was, to the dreams that poverty had tried to bury but never fully extinguished. For Samuel, these moments were transformative. He often paused during their visits, his gaze lingering on the small yet profound signs of resilience. He would watch a child scribble intently in a donated notebook, their tiny hands gripping the pencil with determination. He would see a mother beaming with pride as her daughter recited a lesson learned at one of the free tutoring centers they had funded. Each of these instances served as a reminder that his wealth, once pursued for its own sake, now had a purpose that stretched far beyond himself. William, too, found these encounters deeply moving, though in a different way. For him, the eager faces of the children they helped were a reflection of his own younger self. He saw in their wide eyes the same hope and determination that had driven him to repair a stranger's car on a snowy evening so many years ago. During their visits, he would often kneel to speak directly to the children, sharing his own story with a gentle, earnest tone. He spoke of his humble beginnings, of the challenges he had faced, and of the small act of kindness that had changed everything. The children listened with rapt attention, their eyes alight with possibilities. For William, this was more than just giving back. It was a way to show others the paths they too could take, no matter how steep or uncertain. As their work expanded, so did their vision. They established a foundation rooted in the values that had brought them together. Its projects spanned continents, from building libraries in remote villages to funding sustainable energy solutions for underdeveloped regions. They launched initiatives to provide clean water, medical aid, and education, each one designed with the understanding that true change starts with the basics. Samuel and William poured their hearts into these efforts, ensuring that each endeavor carried the same ethos. Every life touched by their work would, in turn, carry forward the ripple of kindness. Yet, their journey was not without challenges. Bureaucracy often threatened to stall their progress, and there were moments when the sheer magnitude of need felt overwhelming. In these times, Samuel leaned on his years of experience, navigating the complexities of red tape with a patience and determination that belied his age. William, with his unshakable faith in the goodness of people, provided the emotional anchor, reminding Samuel of why they had begun this work. Together they faced each obstacle, their partnership a testament to what could be achieved when compassion met action. The foundation's impact began to resonate far and wide. Corporations pledged support, volunteers offered their time, and communities rallied around the programs that brought tangible hope to their lives. Samuel and William marveled at how their efforts had grown into a movement. It wasn't the result of grand gestures, but the cumulative impact of countless small acts of kindness, each one a seed that, when nurtured, blossomed into something extraordinary. For Samuel, the journey was profoundly personal. Each milestone brought him closer to a sense of peace he had never known during his years as a businessman. He often reflected on the boy he had once been, scavenging in the alleys of Berlin, and how far that boy had come. In his quiet moments he would smile, knowing that his wealth now served as a means to lift others out of the struggles he understood so well. For William, the work reaffirmed the lesson that had shaped his life, that even the smallest acts of kindness could ripple outward, transforming lives in ways unimaginable. He carried this message wherever he went, from bustling urban centers to quiet rural villages. Success, for William, was no longer measured by accolades or material achievements, but by the smiles of children who dared to dream and the gratitude of families whose burdens had been eased. Their partnership became a beacon of hope, a shining example of what could be achieved when generosity met purpose. Samuel, now in the twilight of his years, found solace in the knowledge that his legacy would not be the empire he had built, but the lives he had touched. William, standing at the threshold of his own journey, carried forward the torch, determined to light the way for others as Samuel had done for him. Their story, etched into the lives of those they helped, became a reminder that no matter how far one climbs, it is the strength to lift others that truly defines success. It was a narrative of redemption and hope, of two men from different generations and backgrounds, united by a shared belief in the transformative power of kindness. As their efforts continued to ripple outward, touching lives in ways they could never fully comprehend, Samuel and William knew they had found a purpose greater than themselves, a legacy of compassion that would endure long after they were gone. As the snow melted and the seasons turned, the lives of Samuel and William grew ever more intertwined. What began as a simple act of kindness blossomed into a partnership that touched countless lives. Together, they created opportunities for those in need, proving that wealth is not measured by what we have, but by what we choose to give. And yet, their story is more than just one of transformation and generosity. It's a reminder for all of us that we hold the power to make a difference, even in the smallest of ways. It's in the helping hand we offer, the moment we choose to care, and the love we share freely with the world. These acts may seem small, but their impact can be profound, echoing through the lives of those we touch. So, the next time you're faced with an opportunity to help someone, remember this story. Remember the boy who fixed a stranger's car on a snowy night without asking for anything in return. And remember how that single moment of compassion rekindled hope, purpose, and humanity in a man who thought he had everything. As the video ends, take with you this thought: the world can always use more kindness, more understanding, and more of us reaching out to one another. Thank you for joining me in this story, and I hope it inspires you to create your own ripples of change. Until next time, take care, and don't forget, sometimes the smallest gestures are the ones that change everything. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it touched your heart or inspired you in any way, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. And if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update from us. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content, and together we can spread positivity and inspiration to even more people. Let's build a community where kindness and compassion are celebrated. Join us, and let's make the world a better place, one story at a time.